Okay, so thank you all. I'm feeling like doing a Donald Trump saying this is the biggest crowd ever, but as I say, I'd be in the other one. So Release Manager Insights and Reflections from Joomla 1 to 6. So first of all, who am I? So I'm Phil Walton, live in Gravesend, Kent. Garant can testify that as he came down to my gaff the other day to start our journey here. So I actually live on the River Thames, about 6 minutes away. What do I do outside of Joomla? I'm a rower, hence the Thames. A cyclist, quite a few know because I did the trip from Munich to Berlin a couple of years ago with some mad German. And I'm also a unicyclist. So, maybe next year I'll bring the unicycle. Inventor, I have a couple of patents. Cat owner, although on the other talk I'm more saying that I'm owned by cats because I think that's more realistic. A real beer enthusiast. Garant managed to come to the local pub, which is a very nice communal place. I'm a runner, taken up running quite a lot, and a juggler, as you all saw last year. In Joomla, that's actually the wrong thing. CMS release team is where I started. Well, I started with Joomla London, but that's continued all the way through. I started in the teams mainly with the CMS release team, then moved to GSOC when we lost it 1 year and we had a big go at trying to bring it back. Then around Joomla 4, we didn't really have a marketing team. It exploded, and I still don't know why. So I stepped in to do the marketing. I'm not a marketing person, but at least we got some marketing out. And then that transformed to outreach. And so I then took on outreach. At the moment, I'm the vice president. Please, if anyone else would like to be the vice president, just keep your hand down. London User Group, I've been running that for, I think about 16, 17 years. It used to be up at University College London because we do a lot of work for University College London and physical meetings until COVID, and then it all went virtual. But we've always had a virtual aspect. We've always had international speakers in Joomla London, and we usually have about 2 speakers every Joomla London, but now it's all virtual. And it works really well. And I was talked into, I'm going to be the release manager with Gary, who is my co-host at Joomla London. We've worked together for many years on different projects, so we actually have a good working relationship. We know how to wind each other up really well and when to shout at each other. So we're going to work together to bring Joomla 6 release out with the help of everybody else. So I've worked around the release managers since Joomla 3 days. I was involved with some of them from before that, but Joomla 3 was when I really got involved with the whole release cycle process, CMS release team, testing the releases, that sort of thing. Yes, and Tobias. I've observed the pressure of the job, the qualities that help people thrive in it. And as Joomla 6 takes form, I just wanted to reflect on what it is, what we hope to do with it, but also try and get across that other people could be release managers. Other people could take up this role. And in fact, we need more people to do that. So release managers I've known, starting right from the correspondence with Andrew Eddy. Lewis Lowry, he used to come to, I first met him at Joomla Day Maidstone in UK, and that was interesting, and that was when it had become they were migrating over to Joomla 1.5, and we were doing the whole refactoring MVC there. And then I really kind of got involved with Michael and George. And George was a regular at Joomla London. It was his local. And in fact, it was interesting. So George didn't actually use Joomla in a day-to-day way much. So he would often ask, what do you guys want? he would actually come to the Joomla London meetings to understand how Joomla would be used. He wanted to get the feel of what Joomla and the flavour of Joomla should be. And that was really interesting to understand that people have a passion for a product, but they're not necessarily the main users of that product. Tobias? Worked with Tobias all the way through Joomla 3 and 3.10. Harold, chap at the back called Benjamin, and through all of the release leads. And actually it was at a Joomla event, J and Beyond, that I met Benjamin, when he was bringing in workflows, and then obviously that's led to some mad times cycling around the countries. It's really interesting to see how this has changed, and I'll go on about that in a little bit. So the release managers, which were release leads, that has changed, that whole way that we do it. And that was born out of necessity and watching what was happening and feeling what was happening in the production meetings. The release managers are responsible for the release process. They're there to gather the ideas, get community input, create and execute a release plan. And that is one of the things I think that's come through and we've realised over time is it's not just coding that's needed, it's actually people skills. It's going around badgering sometimes, but coercing, cajoling, but asking people to become passionate, involved, and to do the actual coding. So one thing that's been drummed in over the years to me is that the release managers shouldn't be the coders. They should get coders to do the coding, and they should be managing those people that are doing the actual production of the code. And it is about a time schedule, and I think one of the things that's really helped and has taken a lot of evolution is the process. I remember in production meetings many years ago, we didn't know when the next release was coming out because we hadn't got a date, and we were waiting for things to happen. We were being driven by the coding and the process, and in some ways having deadlines really helps. So as mentioned earlier, when we actually finally stuck on the birthday of Joomla being the release for Joomla 4, we knew it was coming up. We went public with it, and that actually helped to galvanize everybody around a specific date and get the product out. And I think if we hadn't done that, we might still be wondering what Joomla 4 was going to look like. Why do we call the role a release manager and not a release lead? Well, that shift of focus is because we've realized it's more of a managerial task that needs to be done. There needs to be at least one in the team who understands the code, and I think one in the team who's a good people person. And I think some of that was born out of the experiences we had with GSOC, the Google Summer of Code events, where we have mentors, and the mentors coalesce around a student. And yes, you need coding skills to help that student, but you also need managing skills. You need to be able to tell if they're stressed, tell if they can actually keep up with the deadlines, encourage them to commit their code to the public repository so you can see what's going on. You need to be able to manage the people. And it's the same in GSOC, it's the same with the whole of the Joomla project. We need managers to manage it. And it's actually very difficult to manage volunteers because they're volunteers. You know, we're all doing it in our spare time. So it's also good to manage people in a more personal way, to be able to say, look, you're having some issues, you're having some problems, I can see that, you know, things aren't happening. Do you need a breather? Do we need to find someone else to come in and help? And so there's a lot of managerial to keep that all on track. The last release lead, I think technically, was Benjamin with 4.1. And since then, we've try to get 2 managers for every release. In fact, there's going to be 3 on 6. We've got someone that's helping with the technical side as well, but also many of the team will help as well. So it's not just the 2 people that are involved. It's 2 names that are there for contact and that sort of thing, but there's a lot of people around that. And it's been really interesting looking at the teams, because I've seen a lot of the teams doing the marketing, being in all the release meetings and everything, watching the people skills. And I'd say Olivier and SD really stand out as people who, when they started, didn't have the confidence coding-wise, but actually their releases were really good, the way they managed them and everything. And that was down to their people skills. And it really has taught a lot that people skills are really important. So if there's anyone in this room who's kind of thinking, could I do it? I don't know if my coding's up to it. Don't hesitate, because it's actually the people skills that are really important. So what are the responsibilities involved? Technical oversight. But as I say, there are other people in the team that can help with that, and I'll come on to that. Coordination with the development teams. Quality assurance and testing, and communication with the community. And communication with the community is an interesting one. Running Joomla London every month, I get a lot of feedback. And it was really interesting hearing feedback from people telling me what was being sought. And this has been going on for the last couple of months. People have been telling me about Joomla 6 and what's going to be in it and that. I don't know what's exactly going to be in it. We're forming ideas. But it's interesting hearing definitive things coming back already to me. I'm thinking, that's interesting, because that's not something that we've actually said. So it is actually, you've got to sometimes, you've got to talk and inform people. You mustn't leave a vacuum, and that's something that we need to address, because in a vacuum, people make things up, and they start to worry about the things that they've made up. And so we do need to address some of these things and give information out so that we can assure people, listen to the fears, and address them. So the key challenges I see are balancing the feature requests with stability, managing the community expectations, as I just touched on, adapting to evolving web technologies, and maintaining backward compatibility. The backward compatibility one is a very interesting one, because I've heard people complaining about the backward compatibility break between 3 and 4. And I've also heard people praising the way that Joomla 3 evolved into Joomla 4, and how it modernized and made it a much better platform. And so there are 2 sides to everything, and it's a real balancing act. And it depends on a person's coding skills, but also what their business structure is, who their audience is. Are they a developer? Are they a web agency? What are they as to what they might want from a release, and how they were affected from the 3 to 4. Now, personally, 3 to 4 was a big jump for me. I have 100 websites to manage. It was difficult to convince my clients that they should pay for a technical upgrade. But my times haven't changed. My website still wants to look the same. I don't want to change anything. What I want you to change, I want to move to Joomla 4. So a lot of the sites, we had to bite the bullet and migrate them ourselves. And we did it at our cost. And it was a lot of work. One of my employees, Stacey, was actually the one that kind of encouraged me. She's usually pretty quiet about everything. And we've been using Joomla 4 for 1 week. And she opened up a Joomla 3 site and went, oh, I hate these. I really like Joomla 4. And for someone who doesn't usually have an opinion, it was like, whoa, okay, this is interesting. This is someone who's administrating, using Joomla regularly, and they're really enjoying Joomla 4. So, and I would say virtually all of my clients who just use it to put content on, they really like Joomla 4. Whereas a lot of developers hated the big change. And personally, for someone who had to migrate it, I didn't enjoy the change because there was a lot of work involved. Yeah, a lot of work. But it's interesting, the different views, and it's something that we have to balance. Feature requests is interesting. So Joomla London, over the years, a shop is one of the regular ones. It needs a shop, it needs a shop. But how many of my sites are shops? Out of 100 sites, I've got 2 or 3 that are a shop. So 2 or 3%, is it worth us putting that extra code in for what could be 2 or 3%? And that's something that we might need to get some views on and to get some statistics on. And I'll come into my talk tomorrow a little bit about addressing the community more through Joomla, through the back end, and getting feedback from users more. Because I think that's an important thing that we need to do, to try and work out where is the community, what do they need, what do they need to address. And maybe there's a way that we can monitor this more often and get a more statistical analysis of it, rather than people's opinions and thoughts. So what do release managers do? Well, they feature prioritization based on personal and community pain points is what I put here. Because, yeah, some of the things I've seen over the years with release managers are definitely to do with that release manager. It's kind of you can see the flavor of the releases because they're particularly interested in certain things. Others have been feedback from the community. It's then been fed back into the CMS, it's gone back into the production team, and people then coalesced and actually done some work around it. The template, Cassiopeia, a whole group of people got together and put a lot of effort into making that, and it's continued. The whole workflows, I use workflows quite a lot in my business. I know some people don't, but some people do, and I find it an absolute godsend. It is the larger sites, but in the past they were using categories and moving stuff from category to category to try and do a simulation workflow, and workflows has really helped. And if you use that and embrace that, it can really improve productivity. The guided tours I've seen taking off more and more. My clients are using it more and more, and it's something that we're going to invest more time into, actually building guided tours to help clients understand, just tweak it a little bit more personally so that the tour is more personal to them. But again, this is a passion thing. This was Olivier SD. They were really championing the guided tours, and literally a few minutes ago there was a pull request for an improvement to guided tours. It's still going on, it's still improving. And Garen, you came in on the guided tours. You have actually given a lot of feedback from your personal use of it, or how you wanted to, and so that's great, because it's literally the community feeding back in a need, and that becoming available to everyone. I put balancing innovation with Joomla's core identity. Now, this is one of the things that gives a lot of frustration to people. Why can't we do this? Why can't we do that? And sometimes it is a purity of the core to try and keep it from becoming too bloated. And again, it's something I'll come on to tomorrow, but we have split a bit. There are a lot of features in Joomla. It is very, I think the Joomla 3 to 4 install became a lot easier. It became, we were taking away the clicks, but actually there are still things that I discovered today after all these years going, I didn't know it did that. And it is a growing, organically growing thing. And that can become confusing to different user groups. So we do have web agencies and people like that who want the power tools, who want the ability to do this, that, and the other, because they understand they have a more technical understanding of it. But we also have a big user base who are just hobbyists and people doing small sites. I have someone who comes to Joomla London regularly who just manages one site. It's a karate site, and he's been doing it for 20 years. And he has no coding skills whatsoever, totally admits that. But he still manages his site with Joomla and still wants to, and comes to all the Joomla London meetings. And he's passionate about his site. but not from the coding side. He doesn't, he just wants to manage the thing as an administrator. And then you've got other people who really want to push it and really want to make it as fast and as lean. A couple of my sites need high security. Other of my sites need speed because they are 1 million viewers a month sorts of sites, and the biggest on the web for their sort of thing. And they are really needing the speed and performance. So Joomla is used by so many different audiences in so many different ways. And that's one of the things I think we've got to try and address going forward, is how we can split out those different user groups and make it simple for those that need it simple, but also powerful for those that need the power there. And perhaps hide some of the stuff for the ones that just want it simple and just to work. And for the power users, give them the tools where they can then find the tools and configure it the way they want. So the process brings out of a lot of emotion. People are passionate, burnt out, impatient, fearful and excited. And this is something I've seen through every cycle. We're all volunteers. We all have family lives and stuff. And so we really do put a lot of effort and time into Joomla, but it can be quite a toll. And I think this is one of the things that we become better at, and some of the department coordinators have become better at, is talking to people and saying, and identifying people when they're going quieter and saying, do you need a bit of help? Do you need a bit of time off? Or trying to get someone else in to help. Having 2 release managers really helps, I think, because you've got someone else that you can say, Gary, I'm away for JD24DACH. Can you take over and do X, Y, or Z? And not feel that you've just got a mounting workload to come back to. I mean, I don't know if you've all done this, but if you're running your own business, a holiday just becomes a period where you're not working, and then you come back and need a holiday from the holiday because you've just got so much work. If that's the way in the case in Joomla, that's actually very detrimental to the people who are doing it. So having buddies, having someone to pair up to do the tasks is very helpful in that respect. So we need to try and manage the passion. I'm sure you understand what I mean by that, sometimes on the boards. Stop the burnout. Reassure people who are impatient. Listen to them and try and schedule the things that they're impatient about to say, realistically, we're not going to be able to code that for this version. But we'll start the project, get a team around to do it for the next version, because you're a little late for that version. Fearful. So the move from 3 to 4 caused a lot of fear. Let's be open about it. It was for some businesses, some extension developers, it was a big task, and they're worried that it would happen again. And so we need to address these sorts of fears openly and try and mitigate them. And I think that's a really good conversation to have, to try and manage the processes. And that is something that the Sigrid and Benjamin have particularly put a lot of time into, to making sure the releases are on time, every 2 years for the majors, every 6 months for the minors. But also, there's lots of things that aren't seen behind the scenes. The meetings after each release to make sure there are no issues. Putting that properly in place so I can't go down the pub first and pour my beer before I find out there's an issue, which has happened in the past. But we have teams ready for that. It does work better. It's a lot smoother. And also having plans in place. If something goes wrong, we can assess what should we do. Because it's very easy at the spur of the moment to think something's worse or not have enough information. But if you've planned beforehand that if it only affects a small amount and it's this and it's that, then we do that, it takes a lot of the guesswork out of it. If you've pre-worked it out and looked at past issues and problems and said, well, how did we deal with that? Should we have dealt with it like that? And how could we make it better in the future? And that work's been done. There's been a lot of work like that. So the process is a lot more streamlined. And I do remember the meetings, the releases of the past and how they were compared to the releases now. And it's so much better in a process form. It's so much better in that we're not reliant on 1 or 2 people who, should the day happen that they walk in front of a bus, we're stuffed. there's so much more in place that people can take over, can help, and give people a rest. So the release management has become much more agile, more professionalism, more redundancy, and support from the other teams. And I've got 15 minutes left. Yeah, I'm going to quickly go through the teams that have really helped, and help the whole process of the release, so that if anyone was interested, you know who is there and who can help. So the maintainers, I've been really impressed with the maintainers. They actually, I'll go through the things like So Robert runs team, meets every Wednesday, detailed discussion, and a lot of channel conversation. Channel conversation, I mean, in Mattermost. And so it's always a live team that then sits through and meets and discusses specific issues every Wednesday. And they put a lot of time into it and a lot of thought into it. And I say, joining that team recently, it's been impressive and interesting, the commitment and the passion that's there. The enhancement team is a new one, and that's Olivier and SD, meeting every other Monday. Detailed discussion, channel conversation, and what it's doing is it's growing. It's finding its own feet. It isn't there yet, but it is getting there. And their aim is to plan teams around enhancements, to get the people involved and motivated, to be an extension of the release managers in a way, and to identify what features Joomla really needs for the future, and to plan a bit more into the future. And I think one of the things we get is a lot of pull requests and feature requests, which people go out and code and go, yeah, this should be, well, it might not be on the roadmap. It might not be, we've already mentioned the shop idea. It might not be something that is necessarily suitable for core. And some things aren't. They're great as extensions and should go in the JED, but they wouldn't be a user case for everyone. And so one of the things I'd really like to see coming out of this group is to help manage people's expectations so that people can start to see a roadmap, see where we're going, see what's needed and where people can come in and help with coding, and what's probably not needed and really needs to be in the extensions directory, and actually fits better there. So there isn't that disappointment that I put in this feature 2 years ago and it's still not made it into Joomla. Well, it's not ever going to make it in because, it's just not something that will be popular enough to the masses to warrant itself in core. And one of the things is that core has to then maintain it in the core. It becomes a burden on those people who are maintaining the core. So it's really important that we vet everything that comes into the core to make sure it is actually really needed. CMS release team, Benjamin, meets every third Wednesday or after release. Detailed discussion and lots of channel conversation in the run-up to release. Professional structure introduced over time. I mean, I was in charge of that at one point, and it was nowhere near as professional as it is now. Sigrid did a huge amount of work on that, and brought it into a much better state, and Benjamin has as well, and added a lot more structure, and more people have joined, and it's one of those things I'd really recommend. I think all the people in this room, some of them are already in the team, and others could join the team, because it's one of those teams that does need people to test. The main purpose of that is to test the quality of the code and for bugs against bigger sites. Not just the core, not just like the automated tests against the core, but against third-party extensions. And in a way, I'd really like to see a lot more extension developers inside the CMS release team to help out test their own extensions and to make sure that everything works in a cohesive way. Because it's good for your clients, if you're an extension developer, to spot the bugs here and now so we can fix it in a release, or you can fix it in your release because of the clash, than for it to go wild and live and then your clients be all ringing up all at the same time saying it doesn't work. So I think it's something that we really should encourage more extension developers to get involved with, to help and to test.
all the release before the release.
Yes.
Anyway, so you just have to go to the options on your updater, do it on a copy of the page, and there you can test RCs, release candidates, which are coming out normally 1.5 weeks before the release.
Yes.
So if the release breaks, it's your fault because you didn't test.
So it's a very good point. And I, obviously backup of the site, development site, and then switch to the release candidate, and then test the release candidate, and that will really help improve the stability of not only Joomla core, because some of the things might be errors and things that we need to fix, but also of your own extensions, because it might be a clash with the extension that actually it's an old way of using some code and it needs to be updated. The marketing team, so that's been led by Tom van der Leen, meets every other Tuesday, so it's the opposite Tuesday to the production team. Detailed discussion, lots of channel conversation, and that's one that the release managers need to coordinate with, because obviously we have to get the ideas out, we have to explain what the flavor of the extensions, the version will be, and help them to understand what they should be saying about it. If there's a disconnect between your marketing and your product, then they may say that it can make tea, and it definitely can't make tea, or they might not know what to shout about, they might not know the features. So there is quite a lot of synergy that needs to go on between the marketing team and the people that are involved in the product, and talk to each other. And that's one of the things that I brought in. Was I started when I was in marketing, I insisted on being in the production meetings as well, so I actually knew what was going on, and actually marketing could help. And some parts of the production cycle are down to marketing, so if everything goes wrong, it's marketing that's got to say, hi everybody, really sorry, we cocked up, everything's gone wrong, this is what you can do to fix it. They need to get the instructions from production, but they need to coordinate, and coordinate quickly. So it's important to have that connection, that synergy between the two. Social media, I mean, that's under marketing, and at the moment, and that's Tom that's been doing a lot of the work on that with Louise. And Louise actually was really behind the social media team for a long time, and making improvements to that. And they meet when needed. They don't have a regular meeting at the moment, but there is lots of channel conversation and discussion of what should go on. And again, at release point, it's really important for the release managers to say to the social media team, hit the button, send out the messages, but also monitor the channels, because that's how we find out some of the biggest problems that we've had is 15 minutes after a release. If social media is quiet, it's a happy day. But 15 minutes after release, if there's a big explosion, it's like, whoops, we got an issue. So that is one of the ways that one of the things that we have to listen to. We can't ignore it, and it's important to keep an ear to that. The marketing liaisons, it's a team under marketing. It's very much its own flavour. Lots of channel discussion around a conversation around a release. But what they are people who are very they put out a similar release notes and everything, but in their own language. So we'll have German. We used to have Swiss German. We've got Dutch, French, Spanish, Russian. Lots of different languages. And more the merrier. So if there's one that's not represented there, and you speak it, and you could do a little website on it, Welsh, then it would be great, because the more we can get out that a release has come, these are release notes, and that in someone's own language, the better. And so they are coordinated. They're given the artwork a couple of days before the release. They're given the texts of the release statements and everything, and they're really good, because they'll read through it. They read through it and they go, "You made a spelling mistake there, Phil," or "Did you mean that?" And the feedback with them has been really helpful to get the marketing better. And then we try and release it all at exactly the same time. So once I know that the uploads, how it's worked in the past, once I know the uploads have happened, the release is out, then we can go hit the button, publish it, make it live. But it's one of those teams I'd really like to see grow, because it would be really great to get it into some other languages. More and more is being automated. We're using Cypress and other testing tools, and so there would be some coordination with those, and to make sure that there's a liaison there and a feedback there. And also that comes back into how some of the core changes that happen between 3 and 4. Some of those things are under the hood. Some of them are very technical, but some of them feed into product control. Some of them feed into the ability to test better. And that's something I've been reading and finding out as I've been taking on the Joomla 6 role, is reading about the history, reading what some of the other developers have been doing and the reasons why. And I was ignorant of some of the reasons why. And it's been really insightful to go, oh yes, I hadn't realized that. That's really helped with unit testing. And so, yes, it might have been a pain to refactor that. And maybe if you don't know that's the reason why, you think, well, why have we changed the name of that? Why are we doing it that way? But actually, it was for testing. And testing makes the product more stable, and we're all happy. So there is benefits there. Role of AI in Joomla. Sigrid touched on this morning. It's already assisting in coding improvements. I find it really useful for spotting those stupid errors I've made in SQL statements. It's not good at writing a component. If you say, write me a component, give it the best prompts in the world, it will still mess up. It will still use JFactory. It will still forget to put the XML files, and these are all real examples. It's extremely polite when it messes up. It says, oh yes, you're totally right. How can I have overlooked that? Why do you keep overlooking it? But it is evolving very quickly. I mean, when I think of how it was just over a year ago, the coding that it can do now is much improved. But it's good. It's a good assistant to have. A good person to have over your shoulder that you can say, I can't work out why this isn't working. Can you have a quick look? It can give suggestions. It can really help with documentation. I've been using it. I've been sending stuff off recently using tokens and getting automated stuff back. And I think it can really help with translations and documentation. And it's something I think we as Joomla should embrace more, and see if we can offload some of that work that none of us particularly like to AI, because it doesn't sleep. And it's very cheap with the tokens. So, and from what I understand, and in fact, Yannick, your talk last year, and when I was in Joomla Day Netherlands, you were saying about translation was one of the things it was good at, and it seems to be very good at that. So I think we should push more and more of the translation to AI as much as possible. And as I said, token-wise, I'm very happy to pay for the tokens that are involved in translating Joomla into English. It's not a very generous offer, but I think it will become more and more crucial with the development of Joomla. Community plays a critical role in supporting the release managers, and that's not just writing there. It's important. It is. It's the community that feeds back, that helps the release managers. I get a lot from Joomla London. I get more than I put in. What can the community do? Join events like this, translations, provide feedback, and feedback can be critical. Critical feedback is, as long as it's done politely and about the point rather than the person, feedback is really, really useful. Help with pizza bugs and fun. Pizza bugs and fun, we're having 2 a year at least before the releases to help improve the stability and the testing. So please join the Pizza Bugs and Fun. Community can also play a role in driving people away from Joomla, making the market smaller and damaging reputation. It's worth thinking twice before posting on social media. And I feel that's important because I've seen some very unfair posts in the past and some very unfair criticisms when literally the core team are doing one thing to try and do something productive. And a lot of people are criticising and have no idea of what's going on. And it's been, around the release of Joomla 4, there was some, there was a whole team, and Sigrid, you were involved in that as well as I, to try and get the latest Bootstrap involved. And there was a lot of people arguing around it, and Joomla would be stupid if it didn't do this, that, and the other. We were trying to do it, and we were trying to test it. And arguing with people was actually stopping us from getting it in. And it was a close call because Bootstrap wasn't that evolved. It only just literally come stable, but we got it in. But actually, no one said thanks on the social media who were really critical, saying how stupid we would be not to get it in. And that whole chatter damages Joomla. It damages the product. So it's important to think about what we say and how we say it. Core needs to help listen and support extension developers. Extension developers can help Core by shouting out through social media when we have a release. It's interesting how many extension developers don't say there's a new release of Joomla. We've got all these teams trying to do it. It would be great if the extension developers who are part of that market would actually, and this is something that Garant and I were chatting about on the train here, it would be really helpful if the extension developers really shouted about the product, which they are extension developers for, more. And that would be really, really useful. I know some do, but it would be really great to do that. And also, extension developers can help and support each other. The market has shrunk down. It's become shaken out. And those that are left are really useful extensions. But sometimes they're islands. And it would be really great if some of them teamed up more and actually shouted about each other's products. The more we shout about Joomla and Joomla products make it better, the bigger the market, the better it is for all of us. And so actually cooperating and talking about each other's extensions, I think would be a really good idea. We're all aiming for the same goal. Far more effective together than apart. I think that is about it. Thank you. Any questions?
What will be Joomla 6?
Some of that will be tomorrow. Yeah, and that's in front of everybody, so I thought it was only fair. But yeah, no. It's coming together. It's really interesting listening, and your feedback is really helpful. So come and tell me what you think should be in Joomla 6. We put out a few market surveys, and we got a lot back. You got some back from your one recently, and it's interesting listening to your talk. I mean, watching it evolve in translation, how you've got similar feedback. So I think we are feeling the community, as it were. Okay, thank you.